Welcome back. This is how I scored 260 plus in USMLE Step 2 CK and how you can do it too. Figure out your time frame and plan accordingly. I had around 3 to 4 months. Divide your study period into two phases: a preparatory phase and a testing phase. Your preparatory phase should take up a bulk of your time. But before that, make sure you have a strong Step 1 base knowledge. Step 2 CK test makers expect you to already know the pathophysiology, microbiology, pharmacology, etc. All of these you already learned during your Step 1 study period. Step 2 CK essentially just takes it one step further and asks the next best step in management. So having a strong Step 1 foundation helps tremendously. Here's a list of resources used in preparatory phase. Number 1, UWorld. Number 2, video resources like PNB. Number 3, Anki. Number 4, Amboss Library. Number 5, Divine Intervention Podcasts. Starting off with UWorld, hands down the best resource out there. Always do it in timed and random mode. Start doing UWorld early in your prep. Invest most of your time in it. It benefits you the most in the long run. Don't worry about block percentages. Focus on doing 1 to 2 blocks per day. I use the explanations as my textbook and made Anki cards of the incorrect. The reason why UWorld is the best resource out there is because it consolidates your knowledge and improves your test-taking skills like time management. After going through about 4,000 questions in UWorld, I felt like I was solving them at a spinal level because at some point, UWorld becomes repetitive. This is essentially what helps you during the last few blocks on the test day because your brain is pretty much worn out by then. So sharpen your reflexes using UWorld. For video resources, I used PNB Boards and Beyond for my med school exams. I watched it before my preparatory phase, but I included it for completion's sake. I found the lectures pretty decent and I would highly recommend you to watch the biostat section. Moving on to Anki. I did start doing Anki version 11 before I started UWorld, but I left it midway because I did not have enough time. If you want to mature the deck by the time you sit for your exam, start it at least an year prior. Amboss Library was pretty helpful to look up stuff that I needed to read more about. I used it as my Wikipedia. I did not use the Amboss QBank during my prep, but I did read some articles on topics that were not covered by UWorld. I will put the list down below in the description box. I read the articles and solved the related questions a few days before my exam, and I remember seeing similar questions on the exam day. Moving on to Divine Intervention Podcasts. I found a Reddit thread that listed the important Divine Intervention podcast episodes. I downloaded them and listened to them at least twice. I will list them in the description box. It is pretty good for audio learners like me because I could listen to it while walking or working out and still pick up extremely high yield points that showed up on the exam. Moving on to the testing phase. My testing phase was at least 1 month long. The self-assessments I used to test my knowledge and gauge my preparation were NBMEs, CMS forms, UWSA 1 and 2, and Free 120. You can see all of my self-assessments that I took in the right order and my scores on the screen. I consider NBMEs and CMS forms in one category because they are written by the same test makers who write questions for the real teeth. This is the reason that I recommend everyone to focus solely on NBME material in the last few weeks before the exam day. I also made notes of the incorrects and reviewed them before taking any new assessment. This helped me tremendously. In my opinion, predictability value of any self-assessment is a myth because Your scores generally go up no matter the order in which you take your self-assessments, and your real score is an average of what you scored in your last 3 to 4 assessments before the test day. So, whichever assessment you happen to take near the test day ends up being the most predictable just because that's when you were the most prepared. Same as forms are released subject wise, like surgery, internal medicine, etc. I did the latest 4 forms of each subject except emergency medicine. I did them offline. They are easier as compared to NBMEs, but there are at least 4 to 5 questions per form that may be new or tricky, so I only used to review them thoroughly. UWSA, UWorld Self-Assessment, and Pre-120 are pretty helpful in a sense that they are very similar to the real deal in terms of appearance and their question length. Don't forget to get adequate rest in between NBMEs and UWSAs because insufficient rest can lead to burnout and a score drop, which I suffered from unfortunately. Moreover, I will make a separate video on how to manage the last few days before the test, so stay tuned for that. That's it for today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.